Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. And we have a great guest today, a founder of a new franchise out of Canada and also a friend of mine. And we'll get to that in a minute. My name is Tom Skoah, and I am a franchise consultant. I match people with franchise opportunities based on skills, personality, goals, kind of like the eHarmony of business is what I like to call it. And I work with people all over the country, helping them figure out if franchising is for them or not. You know, it's not for everybody. You could listen to old podcasts or previously recorded podcasts at thefranchiseacademy.com. And there's a lot of good resources there for you if you are thinking about buying a franchise, if you're a franchisee and you want best practices, or if you are a franchise company. In addition, there's information for folks that want to turn their business into a franchise. So it's all there for you. It's all free. Today, I have Andrea Mundie with me. Andrea is the co-founder of Skoah, which is a facial franchise out of Canada, as I mentioned. So Andrea is awesome. She started this business a few years back, and she's the first one to go to facials only as a facials only concept. And it's a membership model with a proprietary skincare line, which is awesome because that goes into the person's home. So it's marketing in the house, which is a great way to expand your business. Recently, I mean, within the past few weeks, maybe it is, or at least months, she partnered with FranWorth, which is a leading franchise consulting firm, which accelerates brand growth and helps franchisees and franchisors. And just a great team over there, people who I've known for years and have great respect for. Andrea's served as brand manager for Lululemon. She's operated her own marketing communications consulting agency. She has won awards, which I'll let her tell you about. But I want to bring Andrea on. Andrea, hello.
Hi.
Hey, great to see you.
You too.
This is so great. Thanks for coming on. We have met over franchise conferences over the past few years. I think the brand that you're building is just stupendous. How many franchises do you have right now?
We have 15 locations and 8 of them are franchises. So we've only just gotten started.
Just getting going.
Just getting
going. Very exciting times. So what is Skoah?
So we're a facials only concept. We're a membership model. And about what makes us different than most single service concepts is that over half of our revenues are driven by product sales. So we have a high volume of product that goes out the door, primarily attached to the service, and we only sell our product through our locations. So we really give that exclusivity to the franchisees, and we also, of course, sell it on our website.
That's so cool. So how did you come up with facials only? Why this market?
Well, we've been around for a very long time. And when we first started, we were a full service spa. And our reason for being was really more about creating a very different attitude and atmosphere in a very large market that really hadn't changed a lot in a number of years. So if you think back to one of our role models when we got started, Ian Schreger, who started the Hudson Hotel and really took, that massive industry and turned it on its head and created sort of more of a boutique experience, something that catered to that younger urban traveler. And that's really what we did. And our first tagline was no whale music, no bubbling cherubs, no pretentious attitudes. And it was solely focused on making people feel more comfortable, having it not feel so feminine and spa-like. And we were a much smaller facility. So we wanted to really take that intimidation factor down, but we were a full service spa. And so things were going very well. We were, for the most part, attracting people who had never been to spas before, attracting also a lot of men. And about 2 years into our business, like a lot of entrepreneurs, when things are going well, you think to yourself, well, what can I do differently? What can I do better? And you want to shake things up. And we went and traveled to, some of the bigger cities, New York, LA, London, where things happen before they come to smaller places like Canada or Vancouver, where I'm based. And there was a woman out of New York that was creating a very different single service concept with nails. So she was taking the nails out of the full service spa and creating this really cool concept around it. And we thought that was really interesting. And when we came back and spoke to our estheticians and our, front of house employees and asked them, like, what would you do all day long if you could? Everyone wanted to just do facials. And that's a really interesting one, because facials are definitely, and weren't at the time, the most consumed service on our menu. But what we knew was that they were the service that really created that stickiness with the customer. It was really the only service where you get to know more about them than you would maybe getting a manicure or a massage. And we also have been developing our product line. So we knew that if we could attach the product line to that service, we could create a different experience around how people purchase products. Take out that intimidation, take out that sort of high pressure sale, and just really teach somebody something about their skin. And so we took all of the services off the menu, created a single service concept with facials, and launched our product line. Now, that might not seem like all that big a deal today because we're very used to single service concepts. But when we did that, I think Massage Envy had maybe just started in Texas, but that was not on our radar. We were, 6 or 7 years away from the first blow dry bar. Eyelash bars didn't exist. Nail bars weren't really even a thing. And so to come out of the gates with a facials only concept was really considered crazy. And we just really believed that we could be the best in the world at one service. And we felt like we could really elevate the experience around how people bought product. And we could really dig into getting to know our customers and kind of having that experience where we work with them over time and make some changes to their skin. And that's really been our journey. And it's only been recently that we created the membership model. And we grew for the most part, just on our own, and started opening new locations based on demand in the area that, we were based. And It took a long time though. I mean, people were not yet used to a single service concept. Facials were something a lot of people had had bad experiences with. So we really had to kind of build the foundation and have people understand, what we were trying to do. And that took a lot of time.
Yeah. I think that there is an educational curve to facials, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
So personally myself, I didn't really know what a facial was. I thought it was squeezing blackheads. That's all.
Yeah. And that's exactly what a lot of people think. Yeah.
So what could you give, like a 30-second overview of really what a Skoah experience would be like for a facial?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and the first thing that to me is so important is, what is that first impression when someone walks in the door? When I have had, my own experience walking maybe up to a beauty counter or even going into a spa, there's often been this feeling of intimidation or, sort of exclusivity. And that's really important for me to break down. And our very first, introduction when we first opened was we had a big jar of bubble gum on the counter, because just like you did right there, you smile, and bubblegum is very disarming. And so we wanted people to come in and immediately just let go of their apprehensions. And so when someone walks in, we're going to make sure that they're comfortable. We don't do the full sort of go into the lounge area and, waste time sitting around reading magazines or, eating peanuts. We really want people to feel like they can fit something like this into their life. So our services are an hour, hour and a half. And we really believe in also giving people a lot of things they don't expect through that service. So yes, we're going to take care of your skin, but we're also going to talk to you in a way that isn't difficult to understand. So I'm not going to go in and explain to you that I'm doing this extra sort of gommage facial experience. I'm just going to tell you straight up, I'm just going to take the dead skin off your face and it's going to feel smoother. And when we speak to people like that, you break down a lot of that intimidation that's not necessary. All of our services are in a room that is, enclosed. So you're not in this big open space. There's some intimacy to it and privacy. We heat the beds from underneath. So You almost feel cocooned. We have a big fluffy duvet. We don't play whale music. We don't play pan pipes. We play, down tempo house music that, our customers who are younger, our customers are sort of that 25 to 55. They're not, and that's a mindset. It's not an age. They want something that's more modern and a little bit more experiential and a little bit more education focused. And we really have two pillars throughout the experience. So yes, we are going to be giving you professional service, but we're also going to focus on teaching you something. So education is one pillar and empathy is the other. When somebody comes in and they're in their early 40s and you ask them what they're worried about and they tell you, well, I'm kind of worried about these lines around my eyes, or, I look angry now. What they're really telling us is that they're having some feelings about how they're changing. And they're not necessarily, it's not that they're not happy with what they see in the mirror. It's that we're reminded that we're on the second phase of our life. And there's feelings that come with that, right? There's feelings. And sometimes those feelings are, well, I don't know if the person I'm with thinks I'm as attractive, or I don't know if I feel like I'm as attractive. And there's a lot of emotion wrapped around skincare. Lots of people have had traumatic experiences with skin. And that happens a lot. And it's a very emotional experience when we start asking them to talk about their skin. And so, that empathy as the second pillar is really, really important. We want to help people understand that, it's not a mystery. We can get a program for you that, we're going to tweak as we go every month. And it's going to be something that you can also control. But we also want to make people comfortable. We don't want to make ourselves sort of a little too serious, take ourselves too seriously. And so while we do the treatments, we're also going to make sure that a part of that experience is wellness and relaxation. So while the masks are on, like we don't leave you in the room and wander around and, get on our phones. We're going to give you a neck, shoulder, arm, scalp, foot massage so that it's something that maybe you don't expect. And you come out and you realize, wow, that was almost like a full body massage, but look at my skin, it glows. We take a different approach. We don't want you to leave red and irritated, and it's not necessary. Extractions should happen easily. And if they don't, we'll try again next time you're here, and we'll do some things to your skin to help, make sure those extractions work better the next time. But most people leave with like glowing skin and they can't believe it. So that's really the result we want.
Right. Well, you have glowing skin, so obviously you're, part of your whole service is you're the face of it, literally and figuratively. So, but I love the whole empathy part. That is really, really insightful because you're right. That's what people are saying. So instead of going for Botox, you should go for a facial and get cleaned up and feel younger at Skoah.
And to be honest, lots of our customers are having other more invasive treatments, whether that be Botox or fillers, and that's okay. We never want people to feel like having those things, those services done are a negative thing, because in my personal opinion, whatever you do for yourself that makes you feel good is important, but you still need to have great skincare. If you're going to be doing any other service, that's not going to handle your skin. That's just going to handle certain aspects of it. So we like people to feel confident and comfortable in whatever it is they decide to do.
So are you seeing more men coming in because of the way you do your marketing?
I think men have always felt comfortable at Skoah because we've always been very gender neutral. And we also, have a very simple menu offering. And I'm not saying men are simple, but I think that the intimidation that some men have explained from their experience in past, treatments they've had elsewhere is that they've run through a menu that's got 30 services on it. Where do you start? We have 3 options, and it's really based on time, because your facials are going to be based on you. We're going to change the service relative to what it is, not just that we think you need, but also what it is that you are looking for. So it's very customized at every turn.
So aside from being a successful, entrepreneur and someone who's really giving back through business ownership, I mean, you are a mom of 4 kids. Um, that's amazing to me. And you recently won some awards. Tell us about the awards.
Well, so I love champagne, like most people like you,
Yeah,
like
right.
most of my friends. Um, I don't do a lot of awards. I guess in some ways, um, yeah, for some people, it's not a comfortable place to be. But this one I did apply for. One of my coworkers nominated me for the Veuve Clicquot Businesswoman Award. And it's an award that they do in 37 countries. And Veuve Clicquot is the champagne house based in France. And I really liked, it's the one award application that I really loved filling out because it was based on values, beliefs, and I really was just totally honest. And I never thought in a moment that it would be something that I would be shortlisted for, let alone win. And they told me that I was a finalist, and I flew to Toronto and we had to give a presentation. And to be honest, I gave my presentation and then I thought, okay, I'm done. I can drink champagne now. And then when I won, I hadn't contemplated winning. And so of course I had to, figure out what I was going to say. But
Oh, wow.
what I realized, it wasn't really just winning that award. So they took us in groups of 3. So there were 12 of us that went to their headquarters in, it's called Reims, I think is how you pronounce it. If you're from North America, you say Reims. And they shut down their facility in July, and they did a summit with 12 of the winners from around the world. And it was just the most incredible experience. And we all had very different businesses, but we were able to really see that it didn't matter where you lived in the world. There was a woman from Ethiopia that had won. There was a woman from the Netherlands. There was another woman from England. And the French winner was there. And we just realized that we all deal with the same stuff. It doesn't matter where you live. Some of us had kids, some of us didn't. And I've kept in touch with a lot of the women that have won, as well as the Veuve Clicquot Canadian team. And it was just this transformational experience. And they've always really been a brand that not necessarily focuses on women, but that sees them as just as capable. And, Madame Clicquot took over this champagne house when she was 27 years old, which was the same age I was when we started Skoah. And she was the first one to create a rosé champagne. And this is in the 1700s when, women were not involved in business at all, let alone running a champagne house. And she just did it. And, their head winemaker was a 30-year-old woman that, we were out in the vineyard with. And it was just a really interesting and cool experience, and something that I'm really proud of. And I continue to be involved in, some of the things they do. And I think that was a really different type of award to win, because it was based on innovation. It was based on not necessarily, how big your company is, but what are your values and beliefs around your business. And that, to me, it was a very different approach for, such a massive global company to take.
Amazing. It's so amazing. Yeah. And real, positive female role models, the whole thing. That's such a cool, I never heard of that award. So that's why I wanted you to talk about it. Thank you for sharing that. But back to franchising for a minute. Why did you feel that franchising was a good move for Skoah?
Well, originally, I did not think about franchising at all for my industry. Franchising was something I knew very little about. And what had happened was, I think we had about 9 locations, and we decided, we had a location in Boston that was set up as a license. It's been there since 2010, he's a franchisee now. But when we first started, Pete was set up as a license. We only had 3 locations No, we had 2 locations when Pete opened his first one in Boston.
Oh, wow.
And so how that came about, and I will get to the story of how we got into franchising, was that Pete, had the first facial of his life in our flagship store in Yaletown. He was on vacation and, went to dinner, and him and his husband started to think about, Pete's career. He was a lawyer. He had been to Yale. He's an incredibly smart guy. And, his husband said, why don't you bring Skoah to Boston if you think it's going to work here? And so a few weeks later, I got a call from Pete, and we have different versions of the same story. He sent me an email actually, and it said, I'd love to talk to you about franchising in Boston. And apparently my response was, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll give you 10 minutes of my time, which I can't imagine saying. And I'm sure I didn't mean it in any way that was rude, but we ended up, our 10-minute call was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And he'd really thought a lot about bringing our concept to Boston, because he felt like, our concept is, we call it personal training for your skin. So there's almost like a practicality to how you experience what we do. And
Yeah.
Pete felt that, that Boston practicality, that would appeal to them. And he was right. And he opened his first location as a licensed dealer location, because we weren't set up to be franchising at all. And off he went, and he did really well right from the beginning. And then what happened is, we still hadn't thought about franchising. We continued to open more locations. We got to about 9-ish locations, and we decided, well, maybe we should look at Seattle. Seattle's close to Vancouver. We have this East Coast, West Coast experience. And we opened our first location in Seattle. And unfortunately, what happened at that time is we had a number of personal experiences in life, like we all do, that sort of piggybacked up on top of one another and created some real challenges for us. So the first thing that happened was that my dad got very, very sick with a brain tumor very suddenly, and a very advanced, there was no turning back kind of brain tumor, and he died very suddenly. And my dad and I were best friends, and that was a big blow for me. Shortly after that, my partner Chris's mom got in a car accident, became a quadriplegic, and she passed away. My 3-year-old nephew was diagnosed with leukemia, and he passed away right before his 4th birthday, which was obviously the biggest tragedy for all of us. I also had my 4th baby, which was that's a great thing. But when you're opening a business in Seattle, I'm driving up and down the I-5 literally days after he's born, and trying to build this business in the way that we had done it with all of our other locations, which was really about getting to know and sort of connect with our community. And that had worked very well for us, and that had worked very well for Pete. But I didn't have the same bandwidth I had with my own locations because of all those personal experiences that were going on. It's not easy to spend time out in the community getting to know your neighbors when you're feeling like you need to race back home and, be with your family, or, my son was colicky as well. So of course, 5 p.m. hits, I got to get in the car. I can't be in the shop anymore. And so that really led us. I remember driving down the I-5 on the way. I totally remember the entire moment where the sun always, the sun obviously sets in the same place, but I saw it like setting out the left side of the window. I'm driving down the I-5, and I just remember I called Chris and my partner. I said, we need a Boston Pete in Seattle. We need someone who knows this market. We've got great staff. We've got these great systems that we can roll out for training and operations. We've done that before. We've opened stores in Calgary where we have other connections, but we don't have that personal connection. And from there, that's where franchising started. We started looking at the industry, and the first show I went to was the Springboard show, way before we were even ready to franchise.
Oh,
and
great.
that changed everything. That's where we realized, okay, you know what, this is a thing. And actually, that's where I met Anna Phillips from the Lash Lounge, who is my best friend in the world. And I've learned a lot about her, from her, about franchising. And that's really where it all started. And what I realized was that, we had great systems. We have great training programs. But but we need that local expert from a marketing perspective, from a community building perspective. And at this stage, I mean, we are still creating the category. There isn't yet a facials concept bigger than mine. And I have, 15 locations. The ones that are sort of coming up behind us, they don't have their own product line. So we've got this moat around us where, not only do we have the product line, but we've got over 15 years of operating this concept. And that's a big thing in franchising. When you've done it yourself and you operate your own, you know what it's like. So when my franchisees come and talk to me about something, I say to them, I'm like, there's very, well, except for Pete, I'll talk about Pete. There's very few things that they will share with me that I have not personally experienced. Pete, on the other hand, for some reason, in Boston, has experienced pretty much every natural disaster out there. I mean, there was that snowstorm. I think there was like a hurricane randomly in Boston somehow. There was a shooting in front of his store. There was the bomb that was not far from the store. So, Pete calls me, he's like, you're never going to believe what happened. And I always say to him, no, I probably won't. But, 2 days after he opened his shop, there was a flood above him with a grease leak. So just everything has happened to Pete. But, that's why he's such a great franchisee, is because he's also been on this journey with us and gone through, some pretty crazy experiences and continued to build his business. So that's what I love about franchising. Yeah. It's collaborative.
And it very much is. And when you're buying into a franchise, it's great to get involved with somebody who has a founder that is so hands-on like you are and has been through all the trials and tribulations. I mean, you're buying a business with training wheels. So you are the training wheels for a Skoah franchisee. But what's even cooler, which I want people to understand, is the relationship with FranWorth. And what does that mean for you? Could you talk a little bit about FranWorth?
Yeah. So, we started franchising, I guess, 3.5 or so years ago. We've definitely taken a slower approach to it because I think what I've learned is that it's just tough to do it on your own in any kind of scale. Unless you have that infrastructure behind you to support those franchisees, it's going to be very difficult to succeed. And we had a number of opportunities before us. We're a pioneering concept. We have strong unit economics. We have an interesting business with multiple revenue streams. So we attract a lot of attention from private equity and firms that really want to amplify our growth. So we had a couple of options. We had two LOIs from private equity, and then I was introduced to John Rocci at FranWorth through Anna and also through a mentor of mine named John DeHart, who has LiveWell, who's now partnered as well with FranWorth. And John and I got on the phone and spoke for, I think, 3.5 hours. And I went out to Ann Arbor to meet with them. And I'm a little out there with these kinds of things, so bear with me. But when I walked in the FranWorth office, they had a jar of bubblegum on the counter. And so these things just come full circle. And that, to me, when I saw that, I knew that there was something there. And when I spoke to John, I realized that the foundation that he's created FranWorth on is on values. And that's really what I've been very disciplined about with our company. I learned that from John DeHart at LiveWell and his company prior to that, The Nurse Next Door. When we created core values, our entire business changed. And so really, as simple as it may seem, we took our values and lined them up against the private equity option and the option with FranWorth. And we realized that the FranWorth option was way more connected to our values. And FranWorth has been an incredible partnership for us because we would never have access to the resources to support our franchisees that we have with FranWorth. So we're dealing with, a VP of digital marketing that came from Google AdWords when there were 12 people on the team and grew that to a 2,500 person team. We've got Megan Conway, who is our local store marketing VP. And to have that experience, she comes from service brands to help work with our franchisees to create their local store marketing programs, we would never be able to not only attract that kind of talent, but for a 15-unit franchise system, you'd never even be able to afford talent like that. David Barr, John Rocci, Dave Kyle, the CEO, the president of FranWorth, who's worked with multiple brands over the years. You know, these are people that I get to work with that I just can't imagine having that experience otherwise. And what I love about FranWorth is when we've brought prospects in, we've already done, one discovery day, you see how they realize that, yeah, I love the idea of Skoah. I can see this working where I live. But then they see that backbone that we have behind us where we don't have to sort of figure it out as we go. We've got these people that have worked on, so many different brands. There's hundreds of years of experience where, just like there's nothing I haven't seen in my system with my franchisees because of the shops I've owned. There's very little that FranWorth experiences that we're going to go through that they don't know how to deal with. And so you take that path from going like this to going kind of like that. And that's really valuable. And I think that that's what will help us create a system that's really strong. And we have to grow quickly because we've created the category, and there's other great players in our category. And I've met some of them, and I think you were with me when I met one of the sort of next biggest place next to us. And I said to them, like, we got to do this together. We're creating what we want this category to be. And there's lots of room for us, but we need to work together to make sure that, people know that getting a regular facial can actually change your skin and, build that collectively. So FranWorth has just been, I think, one of the best things for our franchisees. We signed our deal October 15th. Our conference was the next week. Dave Kyle, the president, and the 2 marketing VPs came to our conference. They weren't happy about it, but I made them climb Camelback Mountain with our franchisees. But it was really amazing for them to be able to learn from our franchisees and also, help them understand how they were going to help the system and our franchisees. So we're just getting started. I'm actually going there on Monday. Again, I was there 2 weeks ago. So we'll build out our team in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. I have great respect for John Rocci. I've known him for probably a decade now. David Barr, what a phenomenal guy with a ton of experience. Just was the president of the International Franchise Association for a year. I mean, just so much knowledge. And so if you're somebody thinking about buying a franchise, if the franchise is up and coming like a Skoah, it's awesome to know that they have invested in them a company like FranWorth that's going to help them grow exponentially faster and more efficiently as a brand. So you're buying into like a rocket ship. So it's just, I can't say enough about it. I love it. And I love that you partnered with them. And I'm very excited about that for them and for you. And I think it's going to be great. And even for us here on the consultant side, to be able to talk about a company like Skoah is just a feather in my cap as well. So
Thank you.
I just love what you're doing. What has been the biggest lesson that you've learned so far since you've been in franchising 3 years?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that, and this might change, I understand, I haven't been in franchising a long time. But I think that what I have learned about franchising is that it's absolutely not easier than growing on your own with company-owned stores. It's not. It requires, if you want to win, and when I say win, I mean have successful franchisees, you have to invest way more than you're going to receive from a royalty revenue stream. There's a heavy investment, not only in, sort of helping them get off the ground, but also time. Teaching people how to be entrepreneurs requires a lot of time, and you can take a lot of that for granted. You don't know what you've learned until you start seeing how other people don't sort of have that as second nature. And so you have to really understand that there's nothing passive about it. I also think that when you are a pioneering brand, you need to look for a different type of franchisee than, someone who is, offering Domino's pizza franchises, for example. Now, it would have been different for Domino's early on, but you need someone that's willing to pioneer a brand in a new market and put some time into seeing where exactly that brand is going to fit within that market. And I think that a lot of people, have said to me, "Oh, you're in the business of franchising now. You're not in the business of facials." Well, yes and no. I mean, I think if you don't have passion behind the thing that you're doing, it's never going to work as a franchise, because you need to have that passion about what you do first. The franchising piece of it is just a part of who you bring along on that journey.
That's it. Very well said. I love it. So now that you're in it, have you thought about anything that you might have done differently now that you're down the road a little ways?
Yes. Early on, we made the mistake of bringing on a business development company and working with a broker network way before we were ready to do that. And the broker network was great. There's no criticism that I have there. In fact, I've stayed in touch with a lot of the brokers that I met in that network. But I recall, I spoke to their president. I said, I don't think we're ready yet, because we really need to make sure that the system works even with just a few franchisees. We can't sort of launch without having anybody that can validate, for example. And so I think the mistake we made was working with a consulting group from a business development standpoint that sort of felt like we could just do this, go out into the broker networks. They're going to take us on. And they did. They were awesome. They loved what we were doing, but they can only do so much. All they can do is introduce you. You have to have that sort of infrastructure and all your ducks in a row. And I see that now with FranWorth. I see, wow, how did we even think that would be, our projections were way off. And so I'm glad that now, in retrospect, that it was a bit of a slower process for us, because it allowed us to learn how to be good franchisors as well.
Yeah, you're in the right place at the right time. And everything happens for a reason, right? So I think it's just grand what you're doing. Really good opportunity. So kind of to wrap it up, what is one myth about franchising that you could bust right here, right now?
That it's easy. That it's easy to just roll it out. Let the franchisees go out there and do all the heavy lifting. Let them build the business on their dime. Those things are just not true at all. I mean, you hear it all the time, and you hear it within the industry sometimes. And the truth of it is that's not how it works at all.
I mean, great point. And so I like to make the point with people that are looking to buy a franchise. There's a lot of people that hang the sign, franchise company, but they don't have the infrastructure behind them the way Skoah does now. So you have to be careful, and you got to learn how to vet a franchise. And that's kind of where I come in, is teaching people how to do that. So Andrea, I really want to thank you for your time. This has been phenomenal. So it was so great to have you on the show. I look forward to seeing you very soon at the IFA and Springboard next year, and everything else that we're involved in, franchise, everything that's going on. What's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Well, you can go to our website, skoahfranchising.com. You can also go to our consumer site if you want to learn more about the facials and the products, and that's skoah.com. And I'm Andrea at Skoah.com if you want to reach out directly.
Well, that's so cool. And it's Skoah, it's Skoah. Is that right?
You got it.
Cool. Well, thanks so much. And
Thank
we
you.
will talk with you again. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.